to be Black families in TV and media. This was put together by myself. I'm Tracy Dunn. I'm a language testing expert at DLI. Barbara Lynn and Saki Kirkland, who are instructors at DLI. In this presentation, we'll talk about how Black families have been presented in the media over the decades, namely Black families and sitcoms. If you have a question, please use the raise your hand feature and we will get with you. This is the calendar of events that's happening for Black History Month. And as you can see, next week, the 15th through the 19th, we have Guess Who. We have 2 days with Guess Who contest. What you would do is you would go to the calendar, click on there, answer your questions, and the top 3 participants will win gift cards. So you have a chance of winning some good money. And then we have other events, as you can see on the calendar, that you can join in, such as live cooking classes, Toni Morrison lecture on the 18th, all of these things that the group has gathered for you to help celebrate Black History Month. Okay, so before we begin, and this is where you're going to use the raise hand feature. I'm sorry, you're going to use the chat feature. I want you to type in the chat, what is a family? So when you think of a family, what do you think of as a family? No one has a family? Oh, okay. A group of people, pets, etc., that make you feel whole. I like that. All right, so Private Duran, what is a family? Oh, here we go. Family is my life. I like that too. Anyone who loves and supports you unconditionally. A wife and a son. A group of people who love and support each other and know each other well. Group of people who care. Oh, they're coming in fast. People I'm related to either by blood or by affection. I like that too. A group of people who love and take care of each other. It's the goals of life, a father and a brother. Okay. All right, we're getting all kinds of, I like the, a lot of it is dealing with affection, not so much blood. I agree with that. They are also important. Chosen family is the best. Yeah. And that's especially in the military, you end up choosing your family because the military pulls you away from your family. People who come together as a family. All right. Thank you very much. So, and you kind of answered this a little bit. What is the function of a family? We've mentioned love and support. Anything else? What does the family or a family do for you? Support. Has your back. Yeah. That means anybody can be your family. Ultimate supportive body that allows you to be you. Wow. Yes. Of course. Okay. So if we're going to go by sociology, the research says that the function of the family is care and support. And I see a lot of support here in our answers. Encouragement and strength. Yes, I like that. Socialization of children. Okay. No judgment. They're happy to see you regardless. Family is my engine. And morals, they pass on moral values and behaviors to the rest of the family. Actually, I think I like your answers better than the sociologist. So we'll talk about the function of the family a little later. But right now, let's talk about family. So these are the different types of families that we had. We talked that some people said a brother and a son. Some people said the family unit as a whole, which would be a nuclear family. And as you can see, the Black families that have been in sitcoms have covered all types of the categories. So we have nuclear, we have single parent, adoptive families, and then other families is what we were talking about, coming together as a group, even though you're not related by blood. So in thinking about sitcoms, I have another question for you. What was the first sitcom, first family sitcom to have an African-American lead? Who knows that? You're probably going to show your age, but Good Times, not Good Times. No, no, not Bill Cosby. Not Sanford and Son, a little further back. The one with Carol. Right. Okay, Andrea, that's the one. Julia. Exactly. So before Julia premiered in 1968, most of the sitcoms were Lily White. She was a single mother who lost her husband in the Vietnam War, and she had to take a job as a nurse to care for her son. And this was the first time that a single mother, which is another issue, was portrayed in a positive light. However, the show was criticized for having lack of a male role model. But it was later praised as a trailblazer because of having an African-American lead. So she did face some of the issues of the day that were built into the sitcom, such as racism, prejudice, and discrimination. So let's look at a clip because I think this probably came out before all of you were born. Let's watch a clip and see how they portrayed her in this sitcom.
Out here tomorrow morning, I'd like to get a look at you.
Yes, doctor. What time would be convenient?
Be here at 9. And make yourself as handsome as you can manage. I'm tired of looking at ugly nurses. I married one.
I'll do my best, sir. But has Mr. Colton told you?
Tell me what?
I'm colored.
What color are you?
I'm a Negro.
You always been a Negro, or you're just trying to be fashionable? 9 o'clock. Try and be pretty.
Okay, so they still had sexism to handle, but anyway, so that was for its time, that was trailblazer. After Julia, more African-American family shows were created. And we're going to go through this decade by decade. So let's start with the 1970s. And some of you named Good Times and Sanford and Son. Those started a little bit after Julia. So what I'm going to do, and I'm sorry if you're on a .mil, you might not be able to participate. I'm going to put a link in the chat. And what I want you to do is to go to the poll and match the number that you see here on each picture with the name of the sitcom. And the first person who gets all of them right gets to choose which theme song we listen to from the 70s. So you have 2 minutes from when I hit enter. There you go. Yeah, I'm sorry, Scott. I'm not going to judge anyone, Reed. All right, we've got 1 more minute. Uh-oh. Let's see. Okay, we're coming up. Let's see. Who? It looks like the winner didn't put their name. Okay, I'm gonna have to go to the next person.
That was me.
That was you who said that.
Me too. Colonel Brassy and Dr. J. Leadership, we don't know our names, that's all.
Okay, let's see. Okay, it looks like Andrea Street. Who is Andrea ST? Stark. Okay. Andrea Stark, you have won. What sitcom do you want to watch? What sitcom theme do you want to watch? What's happening? Okay. There we go. Okay, so we have number 1 is What's Happening. Number 2 is Good Times. Number 3 is Sanford and Son. Number 4 is Different Strokes. Number 5 is Cosby, Fat Albert and the Cosby Kids, I think. And number 6 is, what is number 6? Oh, the Jeffersons. Can't believe I forgot that. Okay, so the shows had very different type of parenting or types of families. Single parents, like with Sanford and Son and What's Happening, nuclear families, adopted families, all of them are different, but they all had the same through line. All of the Black characters were either living in poverty or they started off as poor, like Mr. Jefferson, and then moved up. Or like the kids in Different Strokes, he saved them from poverty. So these shows also dealt with some of the pressing issues of the day. So like child abuse, gun violence, things like that, all of those issues were dealt with. But there was a difference between how the Black actors and the Black writers of the shows and the white creators and the white producers of the show wanted to portray the families. So the white producers, and this is Alan Manning was one of them, he wanted a show about economic disparity through the lens of a Black family. Whereas the Black actors and the Black writers wanted the opposite. They wanted the focus to be on Black family values, notwithstanding economic hardships. So there was that difference between the themes and how they were portrayed. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna look at a little clip from Good Times. This is where daughter, Thelma, this is the daughter, brings home an older man and her parents confront them. So let's look at this.
I'm not ashamed of my age. Now, I'm 42. 42? Lord have mercy. Well, I guess when you look at me and Thelma, you think of me as a dirty old man. Bingo, Jack. Well, look, ain't no sense in a lot of fat mouth when I make the rules in this house. Here's your ring back, man.
Oh, Daddy, that's unfair. Why, he has no right to give my ring back.
You're right, honey. That's a mother's job.
I'm sorry, but I won't accept it. Now, I gave this ring to Thelma because I love her and I want to marry her. Now, it's not yours to give back.
It's mine, and I want to keep it. I knew you'd act like this. That's why I didn't want Donald to come here. What right do you have to plan my life?
We have every right. You're our daughter. And you can't get married without our permission.
Well, next year I'll be 18 and I won't need anybody's permission.
Thelma, Mr. Knight, I think you better let me do that. It's about time that you and my husband have a man-to-man talk.
Yes, Lord.
JJ, you go on over there to Vallona's. I'm gonna talk to Thelma.
Well, now that we men are all alone together, let me offer a few words. Fine.
Okay, so the issues there are very universal. They don't like their daughter's boyfriend. He's too old for her. These things are universal experiences throughout the U.S. But in these sitcoms, the lives of most characters were never deeply explored, and comic relief was more important than exploring Black issues. And for those who don't know who JJ is, he became the focus of Good Times. So let me give you a little sample of him and his catchphrase.
Hello, lucky person. You got the number right, because you are talking to Kid a Dynamite. Dynamite!
So that's JJ. I'm so sure some of you remember him. John Amos, who played the father on Good Times, took issue with this. And in this clip we're going to watch, he discusses how his opinion about the portrayal of the three children on Good Times clashed with the show's producer and creator, actually, Norman Lear, and then how it affected Mr. Amos's career.
We had on that show, and we had a number of differences, as evidenced by my early departure from the show, was I felt that with two other younger children, one of whom who aspired to become a Supreme Court justice, that would be Ralph Carter or Michael, and the other, Bernadette Stannis, I think, she aspired to become a surgeon. And the differences I had with the producers of the show was that I felt too much emphasis was being put on JJ and his chicken hat and saying dynamite every third page, when just as much emphasis and mileage could have been gotten out of my other two children and the concomitant jokes and you know, humor that could have come out of that. But I wasn't the most diplomatic guy, like I said, in those days, and they got tired of having their lives threatened over jokes. So they said, to tell you what, why don't we kill him off and we'll all get on with our lives. Life's too short. So that taught me a lesson that I wasn't as important as I thought I was to the show or to Norman Lear's plan.
Okay, so unfortunately, like he said, the Black writers, there were very few Black writers, and the Black actors really didn't have a say in what would happen on the shows. And he ended up losing his job. If anyone remembers, he got killed off, I think, in like the second season. So as the 70s ended and we moved on to the 80s, more Black families were brought onto the stage. Now, understanding that Bill Cosby as a person is problematic, his show was groundbreaking and ushered in a new era where Black families were not always impoverished. The parents were working professionals and the children had attainable and real ambitions. The Cosby Show also brought in more upwardly mobile families. So with Family Matters is more like middle class. 227, they weren't as rich as the others, but then it wasn't all of them that were poor. And Amen and A Different World, they both were middle class as well. And of course, you guys remember Urkel. He's sort of like the comic relief like JJ. But then the themes became more universal and the writing became colorblind. And this is exactly where the producers wanted to go. So Manning, who we heard from about Good Times, reflected on how producers and networks continue to maintain a colorblind approach, making production decisions primarily based on trends and ideas, not on racial subject matter. So this focus meant that any social movements that may have begun to appear in the 70s faded from the forefront in the 80s, and social commentary was diminished. So I'm going to show you the theme from Family Matters. And as you watch it, I want you to think of what are some of the problems you think the family might encounter based on the visuals you see in the theme song. You can just put them in the chat.
It's a rare condition this day and age to read any good news on the newspaper page. And love and tradition of the grand design, some people say, is even harder to find. Well, then there must be some magic clue inside these gentle walls. 'Cause all I see is a tower of dreams, real love bursting out of every scene.
Oops, sorry.
It's the bigger love of the family.
Okay, teenage daughters, siblings fighting, working parents, a police job. Urkel's not that strong. Extended family. Maybe the grandmother might have issues with her swing, her tennis swing. Okay, but these are universal. So it's not that Black communities do not have these problems, but they're not specific to the Black community. Okay, so this takes us up to the 90s. I think we're probably moving more into what some of the sitcoms you guys might remember. In the 1990s, the African-American shows and sitcoms reached their peak. There were 64 shows on TV in the 90s, throughout the 90s, 64 TV shows, sitcoms, and dramas and such. And this is because Fox, UPN, and WB became networks. So before the 90s, there wasn't much difference between what Black and white audiences were viewing. But with the creation of Fox, UPN, and Warner Brothers, the 90s became the decade where more Black sitcoms made it onto TV. They gave audiences of all kinds an unprecedented look into diverse Black lives. The shows were diverse in profession, class, types of families, racial makeups, but the themes were still universal and colorblind. For an example, you didn't like the stereotype of the son working on the car and the daughter worried about her outfit. Okay, yeah, one bathroom. Okay, I'm gonna stop reading the chat. And this, what happened? Where is this coming from? Uh-oh. It looks like that's strange. Hold on one second. Let me try this again. There we go. All right, so this is from The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. And feeling old, our college professor, Aunt Viv, wants to relive her dream of being a dancer. She does her best amid the snickers of young dancers, self-doubt, and her own body aches. In this iconic scene, she auditions for a role with the company, with the dance company. So let's watch this.
We're looking for 3 of our leading roles, so let's get started. We have to learn this combination. Okay? 5, 6, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Now, up and rock and rock and 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, head, 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 over, up, pop, pop, and walk, and walk, and walk, and step, step, double, turn, down, cross, swing around, up, chain. Okay, we have my first 4. Let's have you, you, and you. Come on down. Everybody else? All right, ready? Here you go. 5, 6, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1. Very good. Okay.
Okay, so maybe Monica from Friends couldn't dance the way that Aunt Viv danced, but the themes were universal to anyone. Feeling old, trying to recapture your youth. All of those things are very universal. There were even episodes where Will Smith met his long lost father. That was really iconic to the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. But even then, I mean, that happened across races and classes and everything. So while there were more Black faces on TV, the specific issues that plagued the Black community were barely addressed at all. And also, unfortunately, the mecca of Black shows came to an end. In 2006, the WB and UPN merged to form the CW network, which is still on today. And with the merger, many Black shows fell to the wayside. As the network focused on TV, it deemed more fit for mainstream audiences. So that was the end of an era. There have never been as many Black shows on TV right now, or I should say on regular TV. Now we have all the streaming services. So as we move into the 2000s, there are fewer Black sitcoms, but the diversity remains. Across class, across family types, we still have those. The one thing that begun to change is that Black shows are finally addressing issues and Black issues from a Black point of view. Some of those issues are biracial identity, fitting in with Black and or white friends, dealing with white guilt, Black hair care and self-love, Black authenticity or keeping it real, Black feminist values versus white feminist values, and colorism have all made their way into some of the shows now. So this show, this is Blackish, and I'll show you a clip from this. Diane, who is the young daughter here, she is barely visible in a class picture with her classmates, and her parents are outraged at the school because they thought they should have taken her into consideration when they were lighting for the picture. Diane, however, confronts her family about their own colorism issues. So this is Diane. This is her mother, Bo, who is mixed race. She's Black and white. This is her brother, who's fair skinned, her father, who's brown, and her grandmother, who's also brown skinned. So let's look at this clip here. I guess I should say colorism is basically addressing the different shades that Black people have, and that sometimes brings up issues within families.
Since when did you become dark-skinned?
I'm not dark, but I'm dark enough.
Not as dark as me.
Oh.
No one in this family is as dark as me. That's the problem.
That's not a problem. The fact that you're different is a good thing.
Mm-hmm.
If it's so good, then why are you all so scared to talk about it? Like today, you're saying that it's about the camera lighting or complexion. No, it's about me being darker.
Well, it's a complicated issue, but Diane, all Black skin is beautiful.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So then why do people bleach their skin?
How many people do that?
It's like a $10 billion business.
Oh.
Diane. I had no idea that this hurt you so much.
How could it not? It's everywhere I look.
Oh, trust me. Women like us shouldn't wear red lipstick. Try this one.
It's everywhere I go.
Oh, look at you. You are gorgeous for a dark-skinned girl.
It's everyone I talk to. You see? How you feel bad for me?
No.
This is why I didn't want to talk about it. I just don't want to be different.
Okay, so we've finally reached a point in Black sitcoms where what the original writers and actors in the 70s wanted, a focus on the Black family, their values as told by Black people and through a Black lens. Any questions?
Excellent topic, Tracy and team. You actually brought to light the identification of intra-racial racism through colorism. That is an awesome topic to bring to the forefront that is not often talked about. And I definitely appreciate you bringing that up during this presentation.
Yeah, I mean, it's in my own family. My mom is lighter than my dad, and so the kids are all different shades. And it was definitely something that we addressed and struggled with as I was growing up. And I'm sure, actually, I know that that's even something that happens in Latino or Hispanic families as well. Okay, but it's not something that's universal to all of the US. But if we don't have any being called barely Black or yellow is a thing too. Yes, and there, Nelda said it. It does happen in Hispanic families as well. What is it? The abuelita in the kitchen, I think. Hider in the kitchen. I believe that's this particular issue. It has been around for centuries. Yes, Scott. But it's not something that we talked about in front of non-Black people. It was something that was kept within your family and you dealt with it. Okay, Huertita. Thank you, Nell. If we don't have any other questions, we're going to go on to the discussion. I grew up with the mantra. What's the mantra? Oops. What's the mantra, Dr. Boyer? Okay, he's not going to tell me. Okay,
we have Andrea's hand up.
Sure, go ahead.
Tracy?
Unmute.
I have a question. So the thing that you mentioned with the clip of Good Times and Norman Lear, because I remember the Jeffersons were actually a spinoff of Archie Bunker. And do you remember when there was a huge controversy with particular scene where it was like with Sammy Davis Jr. where they were insulting each other and, they actually, used the N-word on TV and it was very like this huge moment. And then the spinoff, the Jeffersons came and then, Lear had Good Times. I'm curious I wonder if Lear wanted to be more, I guess, being more, I guess, stronger with the issues and things. And maybe the networks were kind of like, no, let's go with catchphrases and, feel good, funny stuff because of maybe with what happened when he tried to do that with Archie Bunker or with All in the Family.
Yeah, because Lear was the creator, but he wasn't the producer and he wasn't the writer. So, it was his idea, but then Manning, the producer that I quoted a couple of times, he's the one that wanted to keep it mainstream. But it was Lear that fired John Amos from the show when he spoke out. So it's kind of a mixed bag, I think. Someone else had their hand up?
Yeah, sorry about that, Ms. Tracy. I was in there typing up. I was a little bit slow for typing. As we talked about colorism and, the shades of different color, I grew up at a time the mantra was, say it loud, I am Black and I'm proud. And that is something that was instilled in my head growing up in the late 60s and early 70s. And so no matter what your skin color was, that was a mantra that was instilled in me growing up and watching the TV shows that had an impact on my life. So I just wanted to share that.
Okay, and if you remember in Good Times, the youngest son, they would make a joke and call him a little militant whenever he would say something like, "I'm Black and I'm proud." So it was addressed, but not in the way that it should have been. It was made more of like a joke, but it was out there. Anyone else read?
I don't see anyone else. I'll give them a moment to raise their hand. But the scene that I remember that struck me most, and I think it was my age too, was in Family Matters when the son, I don't remember his name, but he's basically racially profiled. And even though his dad is a cop, it made no difference, right? And then his dad went to go talk to the cops. I remember thinking, wow, they actually put that on TV. Like, that's good. People need to know that this happens, all the time. And even though it was in a comedy, at least they started addressing those issues like dead head on. And I remember there was even a little backlash, I think, because of that. It's crazy.
Yeah. So that's where they started, and now it's almost full on. And the thing is, with Blackish, Mixedish, Black AF, and the other Grownish, those are all have the same creator. So you have his point of view, even though he was fired from or he quit Blackish because there was an issue of the George Floyd murder that he wanted to talk about, or it was either that or Trump. And the network didn't want him to release the episode. And so he ended up leaving because he thought his voice was being stifled. But then he was able to move to Netflix and do the stories that he wants. So the outlet is there now. You just have to take advantage of it. Okay, if there aren't any other questions, I'm going to show you, it was Trump.
Dr. Rattler, go ahead, ma'am.
Oh, just if anyone is interested in looking up the history, there was actually an era of Blaxploitation, is what it's penned as in history. If you go all the way back to minstrel shows, spelled MINSTREL, those were the shows that depicted actors and actresses in blackface. They were created to make the public at large, if you will, more comfortable with the characteristics that African Americans often had, being more vocal in certain times in their performances, literally, if they were playing music. And a symbol of that, if you go through the history of media as a whole, was wearing white gloves. And if you look up the history literally of Mickey Mouse, Felix the Cat, Bugs Bunny wasn't always gray. If you go that far back in history and you look at how they began to televise the Blaxploitation era, Sam Greer, Dr. Dre, I'm sure you remember from the 70s. Yes, I'm dating myself right now. When they were, when Black women and were given roles on television specifically, it was as the maid. The facial expressions were exaggerated. If you look at literally Aunt Jemima now on this syrup bottle, it's a lot different than what it was initially started as. The syrup, the inventor of the actual label, started off with the Mammy caricature. So we could go on and on about it, but it's interesting history if you are interested in looking at the baseline of how the media did begin, and including people of color on in our media and shows and movies. So.
Yeah, thank you. Definitely, because the first show, I believe, was Amos and Andy, and those were basically two Black men that were playing the role of the minstrel that was on stage during vaudeville. So not too far from the blackface that was in vaudeville. Darren, did you have a question? No? Okay. And yeah, jumping the broom is another tradition for some Black families where is that what you wanted to talk about, Aaron? Wait again.
Sorry, there I am. Yeah, so and Dr. Rattler had brought up blaxploitation, like the Pam Grier films and things like that. And that's always kind of interesting to me is so like when I think about my own identity politics, and I won't get too into the weeds, but just looking for queerness to be represented, right, kind of diversely. So I'm curious then, do we feel like there's a fair sort of swath of representation? Like, I think a lot about, again, we don't have to sort of go down this rabbit hole, but like recently like Pose and a sort of like focus on Black trans lives as well. And so I'm just wondering, like, when I think about representation and broad representation, is that present? Where can we expand to the left or right? How can we widen the aperture, in other words? Because sometimes, to the point of like Family Matters, I remember in the 90s, right? So you had all of those sort of like Sister was directly juxtaposed with like Family Matters, but also Full House and these very sort of white shows. And so in many ways, I feel like there's sort of a whitewashing or sort of, mainstream, a limitation in terms of presentation. So I'm just curious if what viewers kind of think when they watch TV. Are they feeling represented? Is there broad representation?
I mean, I can tell you from my own experience growing up as a child of two teachers, my parents really didn't like Good Times and shows, some of the older shows, because people were impoverished and we were middle class, and they thought that it only showed one side of the Black experience. And I think that's probably I'm sure there were other people that felt the same. And the same with the Blaxploitation shows that Dr. Rattler was talking about, or the Blaxploitation movies. My parents never took us, never let us watch those. But at the same time, there were a number of movies from Bill Cosby and Sidney Poitier that were more like uplifting and more positive. So they geared us more towards that. And as far as, representation, it kind of seems like each group goes through their own gradual movement towards first being on TV and then actually having some diversity to show all aspects of their lives. So Pose, like you were talking about, I mean, that show is its first. I think it's the first to show trans life. Before that, I mean, if you want to just talk about gay life, I think Will and Grace. I'm not sure are there other shows that you'll have to help me out with that one. So it seems like it's always just step by step. First, you're getting your foot in the door, and then you start to see more of your life on screen. And I think it takes too long. I can only think of one Asian show, which is Fresh Off the Boat. The one Muslim show, which is Rami, which is actually on Netflix. Latino show, I can't think of any right now. So yeah, it always starts with tolerance or acceptance. Exactly. Okay.
Tracy, Dr. Boyer, go ahead.
Yeah, Tracy, and as you were talking about the portrayal, and I can only talk about it from my experience growing up in the inner city of Cleveland, Ohio, and when the Jeffersons came on, and just that theme song itself, we're moving on up. And that's something that I experienced, going from the projects to a house. It really portrayed my family, and we were glad to see that on television, coming from with that idea. Although they had the two parents, I came from a single parent household and with a number of kids. So it was really important for me. And as I saw that, it represented who I was, and just sharing my experience from that.
Right, yeah, exactly. And for us, I think my family saw themselves more in the Cosby Show. That's when we were like, okay, now I'm on TV. And it's not that we didn't watch Good Times, we just didn't feel the connection to it. I mean, my parents, my dad might have, because he grew up poor, but as growing up I guess I'm dating myself, but growing up in the 80s, I didn't make the same connection. George Lopez had a show. Yes, that's true. Crystal says that she loved Pose. Pose is a really good show. I would recommend that. Having streaming where they have more freedom to explore diversity, which is true. The Hulu and Netflix, and you get a lot more diversity and a lot deeper stories on the streaming networks than you do on the three NBC and ABC and CBS. Okay,
I
so
can jump in. Oh, sorry, just I can't raise my hand because I'm a host. But I just wanted to, speak up for all of those of us out there like me who didn't quote unquote match our family. So even though I lived with my white mom and her white husband and my white brother, being told I didn't match and all that stuff my whole childhood. Once I started seeing Black families on TV, but particularly the lighter ones, they seem to at least be represented in that way. And I felt less outcast, right, and less weird. Any conversations about hair, I always loved because you can only imagine my hair when I was little. My mom was white, right? So
yeah,
kind of says it all. So, the whole not matching thing, and even though I was darker when I was younger, but the whole point is to be able to see someone even have a conversation about things like that. I think if you can't identify, you don't really see the heaviness and the weight of it. So like when you're saying, oh, now I see myself on TV, even something as small as having big hair, right? Because I was born at the end of the 70s, so I didn't see the 70s shows. And then when the 80s came around, people had the Jerry curls and the flat irons and I had this huge unruly hair. So just having these shows and being able to connect and feel like you can identify or they identify with you, I just thought was very, very powerful as a kid anyway, to have someone or something, right, to turn to, because it certainly wasn't to my left or my right.
exactly. And that's the point of diversity, is that, everyone has different experiences, but there are people that have the same experience as you, Ree, but how long did it take for it to come on TV? So it's not always economic. There are other factors as well. And I'm going to put Scott put in the chat. I wonder how much the expanding number of viewing options has contributed to more bubbles being created, as opposed to the very few major networks of the past. More people can find representation somewhere now, but there are far fewer shows that all of us are watching anymore. That's true. That's true, because they are creating bubbles, and the people, and I guess it's the same as the internet. People are finding their tribe within these bubbles, but it's not as widespread as when we only had 3 networks. So there's a positive and a negative aspect to both of them. But then I can always invite you to watch Pose or something else and open your eyes. So I think it's good and bad. You think it's positive. Okay, thank you, Scott. We have 10 minutes. I was going to show you 2 clips, one from Sister Sister and one from The Cosby Show, and then we were going to do the discussion questions. So let's see how much we can squeeze in. You guys had some very good conversations. So first, Sister Sister, these were twin sisters. They're mixed race like Ree. And they were adopted separately and then found each other later in life. So here in this clip, they're going to talk about the 2 parents here have a different idea of what beauty is or how it should be expressed.
You look terrific just the way you are. You show me someone who's consumed with her looks, and I'll show you a deeply disturbed person.
I got 3 gift certificates for beauty makeovers.
You need 3, huh?
Lisa, this is so cool.
I was just telling the girls that looks aren't everything.
That's cute, Ray. Oh, Tia, come on, honey. You're gonna love it.
Well, how did you get them?
Well, I designed some smocks for Enrique's Salon de Beauty, and instead of money, he gave me certificates.
Well, why didn't he pay you?
Enrique is cheap. I can't wait. Me either. I got a date Friday, and I want to look just like that skinny white lady. Except black and beautiful.
Will somebody please listen to me?
Why?
Because the girls are too young to get caught up in that scam that says if you're beautiful, life is beautiful. We're all born with certain looks, and we should be proud of what we have.
Ray, we were also born naked, but I don't want to see you flapping around here like that.
Okay, and so then this is the Cosby Show, and Vanessa, the middle daughter, is caught. She left New York to go out with some friends to go to a concert, and she's a teenager, so she's trying to go to a concert in Baltimore, and she gets caught. So let's watch this clip.
You really think that the four of you could go off careening into the night and not one single parent would find out about it? Did you really think that, Vanessa? Shut up! Because I know what was going on. You were off being wild and free with the wretched and singing the wretched song. Now, I know you told me about it in the car, Vanessa, but just for the record, one more time, how did it come to pass that you did not get into the concert with the wretched and the big fun? You better answer me when I ask you a question, girl.
Gave our tickets to a man who said he was with the band. And he wasn't, and he stole them. Someone stole Janet's wallet. We ran away and we bumped into this guy, Freddie Scurry, a friend of Janet's brother, and he gave us bus fare.
You're lucky to have found someone to look at your little sorry selves and take pity on you.
Mom, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. It'll never happen again. Can I please just have my punishment?
Vanessa, please. Your father and I have been through much too much this evening to be sitting up here thinking about a punishment for you right now.
But I'd like my punishment before I go to bed.
Do yourself a favor and go to bed. Okay? And do me another favor, please. If you're thinking about running away from home, please don't take my car.
And there's just one more thing, Vanessa, I have to say to you. You have proved to us that you cannot be trusted. It's going to be a very long time before we even think of trusting you again.
I said I was sorry. This is not going to happen
All
again.
I know, you are lying right now. Go to bed!
Okay. Here we go. I wanted to point out, I think June said in the chat that she grew up with both of her parents that didn't divorce, which is fantastic. They were married for 68 years. So she couldn't relate to any of these shows. So while I grew up the same as June with both parents, I found something to relate to the show. June wasn't able to. And so that's just another point. And maybe there's a show out there that later on you might be able to relate to. Okay, see you later now. Does anyone want to tackle one of these questions? Did the earlier shows only portray Black families through the mainstream lens? Or is it fair for for us to expect television networks to fulfill the same role that the family does? Yes, yes. Anybody want to speak up? You can unmute your mic and speak up. Dr. Boyers, go ahead.
I just made it so people can unmute. So you can just chime in now. It's the discussion part.
You have about 4 minutes left.
I think it is, and what we're sharing here is really the identity I put in the chat room, is adding to our understanding of the Black family. We are diverse. We represent multiple categories within society, as well as identify with that. So did it through the lens of mainstream white media? I think at times it did, to have that acceptance. I think we're changing and evolving. And I love Aaron's comment. And I think As we accept and we evolve, there will be more, and there's more to come. And so that was just, I want to share with that in 2 minutes or less. So that was my thinking, my comments.
Yeah, and I think that speaks to Aaron talking about representation across the board for everyone. Anyone else?
In response to the questions that you have here, I think we have to look at expectation. What are our expectations? And what is our responsibility in this? Our meaning individually, as individuals, I feel very strongly that this is part of what we need to do to grow as a society, is have the conversation. The premise of everything that you're doing here for this entire month should happen year round for all cultures. We should be in a mental space where we're always willing and able to learn and impart one another's experiences and stories. Is it fair to expect television networks to fulfill the same functions that a family does? No, but for some people, that's all they have. That's all they have. So I think it's a community responsibility for us to grow and shape our society. And I want to just impart, before you close out, thank you to everyone who's attended, and thank you so much to the D&I committee for doing this. This was an excellent presentation, and thank you for bringing us together. This is exactly what family is. DLI family, including the furry ones. So.
Yeah, yes, definitely. And Colonel Brassey, you wanted to say something?
I do, and I feel pretty strongly about this. I do believe that there needs to be a role within the public television realm for including America's diversity in it. And I'll give you an example. I'm a prime candidate of this from a small town with no diversity. I watched on the 3 channels that I had on TV, those 80s shows that we all look back and talk about. I watched Sanford and Sons. I watched Full House. I watched Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. I mean, I think we all did. But that was my first discussion and education in who else was out beyond my town of 7,000. And when I went away to school finally, it bridged that gap of knowledge that I didn't have and allowed some, I would say, some community to be built and to understand the other students at school who weren't like me. And so I do think there is a role, and I think as painful as some of those programs were in increasing stereotypes and reaching back, it did provide us some sort of linkage and allowed this discussion to keep evolving over the years, but it's a responsibility. How do you keep that in? And kind of lean towards Aaron's point, how do we continue that dialogue to represent America's fabric better? And that's important because there are people like me who there's just nobody else. And then there's, like Dr. Dre was saying, he grew up in a condition that I would never understand, surrounded with people probably not like me, farm kid. So I think that is necessary, and I do believe that there is a role for public media to keep reinforcing us. So I appreciate it, everything that everyone's done, and I'll hand it over there. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you everyone for attending. Don't forget to go to the calendar for more Black History Month events, and look forward to more of these events for Women's History Month. I think we're also doing Irish. So Hispanic Month comes up a little later in the year. So just keep your eyes open. And if you want to volunteer and help present or build something for one of the months, remember to get in touch with Africa. You see her emails all the time. So everyone have a good day, and thank you for joining us.